Nothing. Yes, good afternoon to offline and online students. So, before I start, online students, please confirm whether audio video slide is all clear to all of you. All right, it's clear. So, in previous class, we have discussed previous year questions of polity for UPSC CSE Mains 2025. In this class, we are going to again discuss polity previous year questions for UPSC CSE 2024. So today's discussion will be of 2024 mains questions of polity, right? So before we start, let us quickly revise what are the good elements of answer of polity, right? So to write a good answer of polity, first you need to make sure that structure of the answer is appropriate, right? What should be written in introduction, what should be written in body, what should be written in conclusion, right? You should be absolutely clear about this, right? Second, in your structure of the answer, you need to also be quite careful about the logical flow of the answer. The structure of the answer is complemented with logical flow. Logical flow means that there should be smoothness in reading of your answer, right? Just like a movie you watch, there is a screenplay of the movie, like how the movie will start, how movie will pick up, how it will reach its peak, then will go a little bit down, and how the climax will be written. So there should be a smoothness so that viewers enjoy while watching the movie, right? So that's why there should be a smoothness in your answer, and how that smoothness will be ensured that your introduction, body, and conclusion should be interlinked with each other, right? For that, we were doing an exercise in our previous class that basically first deciding about the body content as per the demand of the question, then linking it with introduction and also linking it with conclusion, right? So that's basically the logical flow. Structure means write things at right place. What should be written in introduction should be only written in introduction. What is meant for conclusion should be written only in conclusion. What is meant for body part should be written only in body part. That's basically structure. The structure is complemented with logical flow, right? So introduction, body, conclusion should be interlinked, interconnected, right? So there should be a smoothness, a enjoyment while reading your answer. You get the point? It means that random things you should not write in introduction and conclusion, right? These should be logically connected with each other, right? Then third is presentation. Third is presentation. Presentation, see, the simplest way of presenting your information in the answer is like provide a subheading, right? And then write your points underneath. You can either adopt bullet format or you can write in paragraphs. But if you are writing in paragraphs, then paragraphs should be small, right? But subheading is must, and subheading should be as per subpart of the question, right? Whatever the subpart of the question you are addressing, you need to provide the subheading of that. You get the point? You need to provide subheading of that. So subheading is the must. And bullet format or small paragraphs, that's basically your choice. And if you are writing in bullet format, one more way or one further step you can adopt in presentation to further enrich your answer is categorization that we have discussed in previous class. Right? You can categorize your points under different subheadings. Right? Then if you are being asked, suppose difference or between certain concepts, then there is a thumb rule that you have to adopt table for it. Right? Adopt tabular form of presentation for any comparison or distinguishing. Right? Then the another way of presenting is flowcharts. You know that categorization is possible when there are 8 to 10 or more than that points you need to write. Right? If you need to write suppose 5-6 points only, then you can adopt flowcharts also, right, to present your answer. The flowchart could be made in different manner. For example, you can first make a full moon flowchart, like subheading in the full moon or full sun, right? Then writing points as radiations of the sun, right? Web diagram you can also. That's the one way. Second would be half moon or half sun flowchart, like at the suppose left end of your answer sheet, make a half sun, write the subheading here, right? And by showing the radiations, you can write the points, right? So that's the another way of presenting your answer. Third could be like you make a suppose rectangular heading horizontally, right? Then can write by making certain arrows, etc. Right? So that's the third way of presenting the information. Or suppose if you are being asked components, right? For that flowchart you can make like a box in a center and it is complemented with 4 smaller boxes. Right? Here you are writing components. That also you can adopt. By pen, yeah. Because you should draw by pen. Because you do not have the time to switch between pen and pencil. Even the maps in geography or history or even in IR, etc., you should draw by pen. For that you need to do certain practice. Right? Suppose if you draw by your own hand, by pen, 100 maps of India, then in examination, within seconds, you will be able to make an accurate map without any cuttings, overcuttings, and so on, without any errors. So that requires practice. Right? That also you can make. So flowcharts are not mandatory. You remember, right? The examiner will reward you marks for the content. So content is the king. Many times students think that by making flowcharts they will fetch more marks. No. The content will help you to get the marks. Right? Flowcharts basically add certain value to answer in terms of aesthetics, and examiner may tempted to give you half marks extra than your competitors. Right? You get the point? Suppose if you have not presented your answer well, then examiner may give you 3 marks. But if you have presented your answer quite well, then may give you 3.5 marks. Right? But it's not always the case. The first examiner will read your content. If your content is fine, presented well, innovatively, creatively, neatly, right? Then he will award you half an hour mark. You get the point? Then your points should be substantiated with examples. More the examples you write, more the marks you will get. Because UPSC want to assess you on the basis of application of your knowledge. Right? So basically UPSC is testing your applied knowledge. It means the theoretical concepts you read, you understand in your GS or in your optional, etc. Whether you can apply those concepts in solving real life problems or not. UPSC wants to test it. Right? So that UPSC judgment, or you can say that UPSC assess you, judge you by looking at your examples. Right? So your point should be substantiated with examples. We have discussed you need to also write constitutional articles, Supreme Court judgments, then committees recommendations, various committees or commissions recommendations, be it Sarkaria, Punchi, Second Administrative Form, Law Commission, or Dinesh Goswami, and so on. For that, we have discussed like majorly committee recommendations comes in conclusion part, right? And the Supreme Court judgments or constitutional articles, there is no such thumb rule that it should be written by substantiating your points in body part, right? So many times students think that they just need to write constitutional articles or Supreme Court judgments as substantiation of the body parts, points, right? But that's not the default usage of constitutional articles or Supreme Court judgments. The constitutional articles could be written in introduction, could be written in body part, or could be also written in concluding part. Similar is the case for Supreme Court judgments. So that's up to you how you are using the articles or Supreme Court judgments, etc. in your answer, right? It means what I want to suggest you, do not be rigid in usage of constitutional articles or Supreme Court verdicts, etc. Right? Use it as per the need of the answer. Clear? So, and the answer you are writing should be written in precise and concise manner. Precise and concise manner. Right? It means, precise means you are not writing anything rubbish or anything unnecessary in your answer. Whatever is being asked, you are writing simply that stuff only. Concise means whatever you are writing should be written in minimum words possible. Right? And that's very important, precise and concise. Because UPSC in its notification itself mentioned that credit will be given to the answers which are written in precise and concise manner. Credit means marks. Right? So do not waste examiner's time in writing unnecessary stuff or over elaborating your point. Be minimal in usage of words. But minimal does not mean that your points are not explanatory. Your points should be self-explanatory. Right? So by minimum words, you need to write, but those minimum words choice should be such that points are self-explanatory. You get the point? Precise, concise plus self-explanatory points. You get the point? And that preciseness and conciseness and self-explanatory points comes by more and more reasons. Right? And more practice also. Not clearly, UPSC in its notification has mentioned 2-3 lines regarding what it expects from mains answer, right? But does not give detailed elaboration of parameters it deploys in assessing the answers of the candidates, right? From that 2-3 lines, we are making inference what UPSC actually, right? And based on my personal experience, the friend's experience, the students' experience, toppers' experience, and so on, I'm guiding you what exactly you should write in your answer, right? And UPSC has not revealed its marks policy, marking criteria. Even the case was filed in Supreme Court regarding UPSC to disclose its marking criteria. UPSC said that I have patent for it. That's why I can't reveal it, right? But by experience, you got to know like on what parameters UPSC check, right? So now coming to the types of conclusions. In previous class also we discussed, Indrajit sir also in geography, PYQ Mela has discussed, right? So let us repeat it again. So one is summary conclusion. Summary conclusion, that's basically you are summarizing the whole body content in conclusion. Then second is suggestive, where you are recommending certain measures in the conclusion. Third is balanced one, where you have discussed suppose pros and cons of something and you are giving your balanced opinion regarding this. Then fourth is visionary, that's basically futuristic one, where you are giving a future outlook of the given scenario. Then fifth one is value ones, that basically based on quotations, right? So either of the approach could be followed for writing the conclusion, but do not be rigid in choosing or writing your conclusion. You need to be flexible as per the demand of the question, right? How the question is being framed, you need to decide upon accordingly what kind of conclusion you will write, right? So we have discussed what's the elements of good answer, then we have discussed types of conclusion. Now in each question answer discussion, we will apply these principles in our discussion, right? Let's start. The first question is explain and distinguish between lok adalats and arbitration tribunals. And you have been asked whether they entertain civil as well criminal cases or not, right? So basically you have been asked lok adalats and arbitrary tribunals distinguishment and also explanation of their concept, right? So for that, see, this question is asked in 10 marks. You need to write this question in 150 words. So it's a lengthy question, right? Then how will you write such lengthy question? Concise and precise. For that, for this question particularly, you can adopt a tabular format. For distinguish, even explanation, like here you can write explanation, right? Then here lok adalat, then here arbitration tribunal. So this box will be little bit larger as compared to other boxes. So the concept and its silent features you can explain here, right? You get the point? Or what you can do, like in introduction you can explain both the concepts, then go for table regarding the silent features and advantages and disadvantages of the both concepts, right? You get the point? Both approach you can follow, but again you have very limited time in examination. So I will suggest go for tabular format only, right? Then whether they entertain civil or criminal case also, you need to write in the table itself. Like lok adalats entertain both cases, civil and compoundable criminal cases, and arbitration tribunal largely here civil and commercial cases, not the criminal cases. So that also you can write in your tabular form, right? But here you need to remember that your table will have 3 columns, right? One will be of lok adalat, one will be of arbitration tribunal. Third should be basis of difference. First basis of difference will be suppose explanation. Second is suppose features. Third is married. Fourth is demarried. Fifth should be, must be for this answer, like scope of jurisdiction, or you can simply write the wording of the question subpart itself. That's entertaining of civil and commercial cases. Right? That should be your subheading in fact. Entertaining of civil and criminal cases. Why? Because you need to clearly indicate to the examiner that this subpart is being addressed here. Examiner should not make any extra effort in finding where you have addressed this subpart. Right? In fact, this subpart you can like highlight. You can take highlighter in your examination also, and you can highlight. Yeah, highlighter is allowed. Right? Or if you do not have time to switch between pen and highlighter, right? By pen itself, like double shade the box. You get the point? And the first box also you should double shade the explanation part. Right? So basically in the table, you are signifying to the examiner that the first shaded box is for first part of the question, explanation, and then there is unshaded box, that's basically for second part, and then there is last shaded box, which is for third subpart of the question. Right? Because do remember the thumb rule. Thumb rule is for fetching maximum marks in your answer. You need to ease out the work of examiner. Right? Examiner has to check so many copies. And trust me, checking of copies is a boring task. Right? And they may be not paying handsomely by UPSC. And UPSC may have given them strict timelines also, like they have to check so much copies in 1 week and so on. You get the point? So they have very limited time. Second, they are not being paid well. That's why little interest. And the task itself is boring one. So they do not have any great interest in reading your answers. Right? So they do not want to make a great efforts in reading, assessing your answers. So for that purpose, you need to simplify the work of examiner. You have to ease out the work of examiner. Right? So you have to write the answer in such a manner that examiner do not get any pain in reading your answer. Do not make any extra effort in reading your answer. Right? The examiner should smoothly and entertainingly reading your answer. You get the point? So that examiner is just quickly reading your 20 answers in a single copy and is giving you the marks. That should be your objective. More you ease out the work of examiner, more marks you will get. More you make the task of examiner difficult or complicated, lesser marks you will get. You get the point? That's why I'm saying you need to double shade the first row of the table, that's explanation part, and the last part. Examiner will get clear idea. Here explanation section is addressed, here distinguishment, here the civil and criminal cases. You get the point? Yes, one column could be of examples also. Right? One row could be of examples. And examples are must. So example also should be written in table itself. No separate space for examples. Right? Then in this answer, like see, generally students attempt 15 marks question first. Then they come to 10 marks question. So by the time they write 15 marks question, they consume most of the 3 hours time. Like they may spend 2 hours in 50 marks question. Ideally they should spend 1.5 hour to 1 hour 45 minutes to 15 marks question. Right? But they may have already consumed 2 hours or maybe 2 hours 15 minutes and so on. So they have very less time for 10 marks question. So in that situation, for this question particularly, you can skip introduction and conclusion because you have limited time left, if that is the case. You get the point? You can simply draw the table for this answer, right? But if you have time, right, then write the introduction and conclusion. And introduction and conclusion will be very small because majority of the content of lok adat and arbitration tribunals, right, that will be there in the table itself, right? So do not reveal your cards in introduction or do not repeat your cards in conclusion, right? If you write a bigger introduction or conclusion, you will end up writing body points in the introduction or in the conclusion. So examiner will get the idea about you that you are repeating the stuff, you are lacking the content, right? You are writing haphazardly, you are not following a clear structure of your answer or maintaining logical flow in your answer. You get the point? So that's why introduction of this particular answer will be of one line. You get the point? You can like write about lok adats and tribunals are both part of ADR, alternative dispute resolution mechanism, right? Which provides dispute resolution outside the normal court architecture. You get the point? That's the two line or your one line. Both are part of ADR, right? Then start explaining lok adats and tribunals in the first row, abouts and features and merits, demerits, right? In conclusion, you can like summarize what we have written, like summarizing conclusion you can adopt, right? For example, you could talk about that lok adats and the tribunals both aim to simplify the lives of people, right? Or reduce, or both tries to provide justice to the people in speedier manner and so on. Or you can give futuristic outlook that both institutions should be strengthened, right, to ensure justice in the society. You get the point? So that should be your conclusion, just in one line for this particular answer. Clear? So you can talk about ADR. So introduction is basically similarity. What is similarity between them? Both are part of ADR, right? Then you need to talk about what actually they are, then their statutory backing, their nature, procedures they follow, like both follow flexible summary procedures, not bound by Code of Civil Procedure and Evidence Act, right? Then whether their awards are final or not, whether they can be appealed or not, right? And subject matter, whether they can hear civil or criminal matters or not. And you can add up merits, demerits also. If you have time, add merit, demerits. If you do not have time, just restrict yourself to features. But they have asked you distinguishment, so you can add merits and demerits, right? You get the point? And you can also add on solutions, right, to strengthen both mechanisms in the table itself, right? But there should be like precise and concise. Like here we have written flexible, summary hearings, right? Evidence Act not strictly followed. But this is how you have to write your points. Get the point? Do not over-explain your points. Clear? Clear? Work of examiner. Yeah, do not get any extra effort or stress or pain while reading your answer. More you simplify the job, more marks you get, right? For that purpose, you need to maintain structure of the answer, logical flow, have a good presentation, right? And points are being substantiated with examples, right? And articles, Supreme Court verdicts, etc., written being in clear manner, right? And the points are in concise manner, and so on, right? Then second question is, the growth of cabinet system has practically resulted in the marginalization of parliamentary supremacy. The tail word is elucidate. It means just simply explain the statement. Elucidate means explanation of the statement, and if possible with examples, right? Sometimes we also use the tail word illustrate. Illustrate means explanation with examples. Explanation with examples or illustrations, right? Elucidate means explain, right? Simply explain. Do not go beyond the statement, right? You do not need to examine or analyze the statement. So, growth first, for that purpose, you can bifurcate the given statement. The growth of cabinet system, right? That's the first key phrase. Second is practically, in reality, right? Resulted the marginalization of parliamentary supremacy. Right? Second is result of marginalization of parliament. Third is parliamentary supremacy. Right? So you have to explain three things: parliamentary supremacy, growth of cabinet system, and resulting marginalization. The structure of your answer will be how? Like in introduction, you should talk about parliamentary supremacy. Explain the concept. Right? Like in the British parliamentary form of government, parliament is sovereign. Parliament is enjoying supreme power. Right? And executive is supposed to help parliament in implementation of its laws. It's the parliament which constitutes the executive. Right? It's the parliament which allocates the financial resources to the executive. It's the parliament which assigns the work to the executive, that's of law implementation. And it's the parliament which holds the executive accountable by question or by adjournment motion or by no confidence motion by replacing the executive itself. Get the point? So that concept you should write in introduction. Yes? So you are basically setting the premise of your answer. By simply defining the concept of parliamentary supremacy. Then you will talk about growth of cabinet system. So your next part in your answer, that's the first subpart of body, will be growth of cabinet system. It means the executive is getting dominant in the parliamentary form of government. But in parliamentary form of government, we expect parliament to be dominant. But here, executive is getting dominant. Right? So that you need to specify why, like how, etc. For example, you need to prescribe reasons of growth of cabinet system. For example, the executive ruling party enjoys majority in Lok Sabha. Then you have to talk about the growth of usage of ordinances or the instrument of delegated legislation. Right? Then the speaker is also from ruling party, and speaker could be removed anytime by ruling party if speaker does not work in favor of ruling party. Right? Then opposition is weak, is fragmented, that's why is not able to hold executive accountable. Then in Rajya Sabha also many times the ruling party has majority, that's why the law making become a formality for ruling party. It will surely the legislative bill is surely going to be passed in both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Right? So you need to write about how the cabinet system get grown. Right? In the first subpart of the answer. And these points should be supported with examples like of farm bills. Right? Or like of Article 370 abrogation. Right? Or a passage of Aadhaar bill as money bill. And so on. Right? So these points should be there specifying how the growth of cabinet system happened in the country. Right? Then the second body part will be of marginalization of parliamentary supremacy. How it resulted marginalization of parliamentary supremacy. So what is the result? Here parliamentary accountability of executive become rare. Right? Very rarely we found that opposition is able to hold executive accountable for its lapses in performance. Right? For example, the repeated railway accidents or repeated terrorist attacks and so on. Still, executive uh, executive is not able to get accountable by parliament. You get the point? Or the continuous corruption in the system and so on. Right? Then parliament's working is becoming ineffective. The executive get its uh, sway in bill passage. Right? Whatever the bill executive wants to get passed in the parliament. Right? Even the ill-thought words or ill-conceived words, ill-conceived bills, and so on. For example, frequent amendments in surrogacy bill. You can talk about, right? That you can talk about. Or there is extravagance or corruption in financial expenditure. The financial resource parliament allocates, right? That is often accompanied with extravagance. Like suppose a bridge could be constructed in 100 crores, but the bridge is being constructed in 1000 crores. For example, in Varanasi, right? A ropeway was constructed for 4 kilometers, right? So how would be, what do you think, what would be the cost of this 4-kilometer ropeway? 200 crores, 50 crores for 1 kilometer, but it was constructed in 1000 crores. Because legislature is not able to hold executive accountable, right? So that's basically the result of marginalization of parliament. You get the point? So that will be the second body part, right? So now the statement get addressed, right? You have explained parliamentary supremacy in introduction. Then how cabinet system get grown in first body part. Then how the marginalization of parliament is happening and its consequences, second body part, right? Then you have to now just wind up the answer. How will you wind up the answer? By making comment on the given state of affairs. That's one way. Like that's a sorry state of affairs, right? We need to strengthen the parliament so to hold executive accountable for its performance, right? Or yes, visionary also, right? We need to make sure that parliament function as effective like in USA or in UK. Like comparative also you can give, or visionary also you can give, right? We need to create an ecosystem in our legislative functioning by which we are able to see executive being accountable for even minor lapses in its performance to the parliament. Yeah, that will be suggestive, and you even can call for suggestive conclusion also, where you can mention that committee system should be strengthened, right? Parliamentary ethics should be followed by the members. Speaker should be made to resign from the political party from which he is coming, right? Then you can talk about evaluation of like the bills being passed in the house, right? And so on, right? So in the conclusion, you can write about measures. Yeah. So any way you can adopt this answer, right? We have discussed like first is the format that we have discussed is first definition of parliamentary supremacy and the explanation of the concept by writing down its features, right? Then we have discussed, right, why cabinet system get grown or got predominant. Then we have discussed how it resulted marginalization of parliamentary supremacy and its consequences. Then we have discussed suppose some certain measures for strengthening parliament, right? So this question you can write in paragraph format also, right? This question could be written in paragraph format also, right? Because the paragraph format so this answer you can write also in paragraph format. Why I am suggesting paragraph format? Because remember this again is 10 marks question, and in 10 marks question quite often you will have less time in the examination, right? So paragraph format has an advantage over bullet format, that it could be written faster also. Get the point? See, it's a little bit debatable matter whether bullet format gives you faster speed in writing the answer or paragraphs gives you faster speed in writing the answers, right? Sometimes it's paragraph when you have lower content, right? But if you have huge content in the answer, then bullet format, right? Precise also, right? So this answer could be written in paragraph format. Get the point? But I will suggest to give subheadings also in the paragraph format, like reasons of growth of cabinet system, right? Consequent result of marginalization of parliamentary supremacy and so on. You get the point? The UPSC will give you 2 pages, like suppose this much, suppose these are the 2 pages, right? Will be given to you. So 25% will be taken by the margins, right? Even on top and bottom also you have the margins, right? And never ever write in these margins, because if you write in these margins, UPSC is going to penalize you by deducting marks. There was one candidate who have greater marks than cutoff, but he was penalized by 25 marks, right, for writing in margins by UPSC. That's why he was not able to clear mains. You get the point? Yeah, this margin is for valuator, right? You get the point? And this restricted space also mandates you to write in precise and concise, right? If you have been given so much space, then you have written in elaborative manner, right? But you have restricted space, that's why also you have to write in precise and concise manner. You have limited time also because you have to write 20 questions in 3 hours, right? Approximately 9 minutes for each question, right? Not 9.5, because a lot 5 minutes will be consumed of yours in suppose filling up the serial number and roll number or signature and so on, marking your attendance, right? So assume you have even 8.5 minutes. You get the point? Yeah. Even 30 seconds for reading the questions, maybe 1 minute. In fact, you should not constrict your time in reading the question. In fact, you should give 1 minute to the question reading, right? You should read the question twice or even thrice. You get the point? For that, you need to give 1 minute. And never ever try to skip this 1 minute of reading of the question. Never ever try to save time in this reading of the question. Reason being, okay, let me give you in the next question, right? Reason being in reading of the question is UPSC will give you marks, right, for addressing the demand of the question, demand, need, or requirement of the question. It means what is being asked, right? If you write that only, you will get the marks. If you write anything which is not related to what is being asked, you will not get the marks. Right? That rule that we sometimes follow in our board or university exams, that examiner will check or give you marks on the basis of how much content or elaboration you have done in your answer. Get the point? That is not the case with UPSC. Right? Like examiner has asked about suppose this much content in your board or university examination, and you write this much content, right? And this much extra content you write. and this extra content is not asked in the question, right? So there you get full marks. But here UPSC, if this much is being asked, you have to write this much only. You get the point? Many a times candidates do not read the question properly, so they write what they know, not what is being asked. For example, once UPSC asked about Harappan sites in Pakistan, but candidates start writing about Harappan sites in both India and Pakistan. So you have written, suppose, about Harappan sites of India, you will not get the marks for it. You get the point? So that's why it's necessary to read the question. Second reason to read the question multiple times is to get competitive edge over your rivals. How? You will get competitive edge over your rivals? Or how will you get extra mark than your competitors? By just reading the question multiple times. You get the point? How will you get? Yeah, very good. You will be able to find out the hidden sub-part of the question. You get the point? That may be overlooked by cursory reading of the question. If you do in-depth looking of the question, reading of the question, you will get to know, right, what examiner actually wants to ask from you. You get the point? So that hidden part, you will get to know of the question if you read the question multiple times. You get the point? And if you write that hidden part of the question in your answer, you will get surely, that's absolutely sure, the greater marks than your rivals. You get the point? Why? Because I have used the word surely. Because suppose if you write your answer in good handwriting, right? We say good handwriting fetch more marks. But that's not always the case. Even if somebody have written in bad handwriting, but the content is fine, examiner will give the marks. Right? Somebody have written rubbish, but in good handwriting, examiner will not give the marks. We say by flow charts or so, you will get more marks by good presentation of your answer. That's also not the case every time. Right? If you have not written relevant content through flow charts, you will not get the marks. If the content is relevant, right, then you will get the marks through flow charts. Right? So flow charts or good handwriting will not always give you marks, some extra than your competitors. But writing a subpart which was overlooked by your competitors but caught by you. The subpart has been caught by your eyes, right? And you have written in that answer, you will get surely 100% marks greater than your rivals. You get the point? That's why you need to focus upon rereading the question multiple times, right? So to find out the hidden part of the question. Hidden means which was hidden to others. It was not caught by the eyes of others, right? It was visible. It was there in the question, but other candidates in hurry choose to ignore it, overlook it, right? But your eyes put attention, focus on it, right? Caught it and right, address it in your answer. You get the point? So, see, if you see like nowadays the YouTube channels, right? There are so many YouTube channels talking about answer writing and so on. All they talk about presentation, right? Do this kind of flow chart, this kind of flow chart. They will give you so much templates also. But you must have observed that in my previous session and also this session, I'm focusing more on content, right? How your content should be structured, how there should be logical flow in your answer, how you should focus upon addressing the demand of the question, right? How you should find out the hidden part of the question and so on. You get the point? How there should be preciseness and conciseness in your answer, and it should be present good. Uh, uh, it should be presented in good manner, right? So presentation I'm giving emphasis, but in the last, right? But I'm giving priority or emphasis on content, because do remember content is the key, right? If you are talking rubbish or beautifully designed flowcharts, trust me, you will not get it, right? Even if your presentation is ordinary, that's just subheading, points, underlining of keywords, right? But your content is like simply awesome, addressing each and every subpart of the question, you will get highest possible. You get the point? Because tell me, substance lies where? In content or in presentation? Content. You must have seen movies which have high presentation in terms of item songs or shooting in exotic locations, right? Big star cast, right? And great music, but they fail at the box office. Why? They lack scripts, right? That's the content of the movie, script, screenplay, right? You must have seen the big budget movies get failed. Reason always is script, the content of the movie. Get the point? In politics also, big parties, big leaders fail in the election, despite the fact they spend thousands of crores in the election. Why? Content was missing, be it in their speeches or be it in their performance and so on. Right? Or in business also, you may see so much marketing campaigns, but their product lacking the substance. The product is not of quality nature. You get the point? So they also get failed. Similar is the case for UPSC answer. If you make good presentation in absolutely good handwriting and so on, but your content is rubbish, right, of low quality, then you will never get the marks. Okay? But you have ordinary presentation and great quality content, you will get maximum. You get the point? And UPSC has written in its notification that credit shall be given to relevant content only. You get the point? UPSC has made it clear. You have to write relevant, right? So you are writing great content, ordinary presentation, super, good. But great content, great presentation, marvelous, extraordinary, top rank, right? First focus on great content. Okay, ordinary presentation still will give you selection, good rank, right? But if you practice a lot, right, both will come in your answer. Great content, great presentation, you will get top. You get the point? So first priority is content. That vary year to year. Average around 700. 700 to 750. Right? That's the mains cutoff. So it means you need to get suppose 125 to 150 in essay, 400 around GS, before GS paper, 100 is suppose, right? And around 250 is not, then you will get the selection, right? But if you suppose cross 300 in optional and 450 around in GS, right, and 150 suppose in essay, right, you will get top rank. You get the point? But do not think about marks. Think about your answer. Greater is the quality of your answer, greater will be the marks, and you will get the top rank. You get the point? So now understand this. Coming to this question, the duty of Comptroller and Auditor General is not merely to ensure the legality of expenditure, but also its propriety. Comment. So you have to read the question multiple times, right? So first is tail word, comment. It means you have to give your opinion after analyzing the given statement. So the tail word is comment. So your opinion is mandatory here, right? So here you have to give balanced conclusion, opinion-based conclusion, no suggestion, right? Or your opinion could be framed in such a manner that you are giving then suggestions, but the ending part of your answer should express your opinion, because you have been specifically asked by the question comment. You get the point? So here opinion-based or balanced conclusion will work, right? You can complement it with suggestions or a quote also, right? But your opinion should be there, right? That's part of your question. If you do not write the opinion, examiner will deduct the marks for you. Clear? That's the first part. The second is duty of the comptroller and judiciary is not merely to ensure legality. This word is quite important. Not merely, right? But also its propriety, right? So the question is about duty of CAG, right? So you have to write about duty of CAG. First, you need to specify how it is not, or how it is being considered merely sometimes as ensuring legality of the expenditure, because as the constitution or law mandates that CAG has to examine whether the expenditure by the executive is legally authorized by the legislature or not. That's mandatory for the CAG. So you need to write as per constitution and the law, CAG is bound to examine legality of the expenditure. That's basically checking whether such expenditure is authorized by the parliament or not, and such expenditure is being done within the limits prescribed by the parliament, right? Or there is no over expenditure, right? And so on. So these things you have to elaborate in the first body part of your answer, right? In the second body part of your answer, you need to talk about its propriety, right? You have to mention that proprietary audit, that is examining the economy, effectiveness, right? Or integrity of the expenditure is optional, discretionary for CAG. It's not mandated by constitution or law. To check whether there was corruption or not, whether there was extravagance in expenditure or not, that's optional on the part of CAG, right? How? That pre-examination of bill is not done by CAG. CAG simply examine the money bills authorizing expenditure to executive from Consolidated Fund of India, right? So such expenditure by executive is done as per the money bill provisions or not. That's the job of CAG. Whether to check that in such expenditure there was any corruption involved or not, extravagance involved or not, whether some cost savings could be done or not, right? And so on. That's optional on the part of CAG, not mandated by constitution or law, not restricted also by constitution or law. So in third part of the question, you need to write that such proprietary audit is not restricted, not banned, not prohibited by constitution or law. The constitutional spirit, the constitutionalism or constitutional morality will suggest, will expect CAG to do also proprietary audit. That will address the demand of the question. You get the point? Yeah. Yeah. See, that in the example of that Kashi roadway project, right, that basically have 1,000 crore budget. So CAG will examine whether 1,000 crore has been sanctioned by the legislature, by money bill or not. You get the point? And CAG then will examine that this legislature, suppose sanctioned 800 crore, but executive spent 1,000 crore. Then CAG will pinpoint this in its report, because executive cannot exceed the expenditure authorized by legislature, right? So that's mandatory for the CAG. Then in proprietary audit, CAG will examine whether such roadway could be constructed in 200 crores or not. You get the point? That's basically proprietary audit. That's optional for CAG. You get the point? Yes. How much cost saving or economies? Economies with cost savings could be done in the expenditure. You get the point? Yeah. So CAG could be biased towards government, but CAG is also given security of tenure. Constitution has made adequate provisions for its independence. CAG could be removed on the similar grounds and manner like of Supreme Court judge. Right? CAG expenditure is charged on Consolidated Fund of India and so on. So that's why we expect CAG to pinpoint these anomalies in the report. Get the point? If there is any corruption, etc., also in this report. So that is also the part of question. So in first part, you will talk about the constitutional or legal mandate of CAG doing legal audit. Second, you will talk about propriety audit is optional. But in third part, you will talk about that the constitutional spirit or constitutionalism or constitutional morality expect CAG to do propriety audit also. Because it is, if not specifically allowed or mandated by constitution, then it is also not restricted or prohibited by the constitution. You get the point? So that will be your third section. Right? Then how will you then introduce your answer? CAG is the auditor of the central, state government and PSUs of central and state governments, right? And you can also talk about constitutional article, that article 148 to 51, right, deals with CAG under part 5 of the constitution. (148), right? That also you can talk about. You get the point? So you are giving some introduction about CAG. Then you are talking about its duties, right? And these keywords, not merely but also, get addressed in these subparts of your answer, right? And that you should complement with examples, like you can give of 2G scam, right, or call scam, Commonwealth scam, right, and so on. And also the fourth body part, you can add the arguments for ensuring propriety audit by CAG, right? Because CAG has act as guardian of public purse, right? The technical job of examining the accounts of the government and exposing the corruption sector in it could be done by an expert body like CAG, right? So arguments like this also you can put, right? Then in conclusion, what you have to write is your opinion on this matter, right? So your opinion could be like, yes, CAG should be constitutionally mandated to do propriety audit, and it will resolve the ambiguity in CAG's role or CAG's duty, right? So its opinion complemented with suggestion, right? You get the point? So that's how you will write this answer. Clear? You get the point? So how could you present this answer of CAG? Like simply introduction first, then make a subheading of legal audit, then subheading of propriety audit, then reasons, right? Then make a conclusion, right? And never ever write these words introduction, body, conclusion. I've seen that many candidates use these words in answer, right? Never ever use these words, because it is understood by the examiner that first few lines of your answer is part of introduction, right? The main content, majority content of your answer is body part, right? And the last few lines of your answer is concluding part. Yeah. Oh, not much space. Yeah, like after introduction, from next paragraph or by separate subheading, distinct subheading, body part should start, right? And by a separate paragraph, your concluding section should be initiated. Get the point? That's how you can distinguish between intro, body, and conclusion. Here, so there should be natural flow in introduction, body, and conclusion, just like in movie, right? A director never tell you that now the song will be played, now the item song will become. It comes naturally in the movie, right? So you do not need to mention to the examiner, right? It's an introduction, or it's a body, or it's a conclusion. Clear? So here, if you want to draw flow chart, you can also do this, because content is lesser. Flow chart is useful for content which is shorter one, right? Web diagram also, like legal audit, right? Then propriety audit, right? Then reasons, 3 web diagrams you can draw, right? You get the point? And then one way more you can draw these web diagrams, like suppose if there are 3 points, then draw triangle. In between triangle, suppose write propriety audit, like write 3 points here, right? Or do the numbering also, because examiner will get to know what is your first point, what is your second point, and third point. Because you are suppose writing first point here, examiner, if you do not do the numbering, examiner may think that you may be starting from here. Then if we suppose read this point, then the natural flow, logical flow of your answer will get break, right? Will create unnecessary inconvenience to the examiner, and he may get frustrated and deduct marks. He may think that why have you drawn the diagram, instead you could better write in point format simply, right? So do the numbering. If you have suppose 4 points, then you can make a sphere, right? Rectangle or sphere. You get the point? And suppose in this triangle or rectangle, suppose you get to recall 2 more points or 3 more points extra, then what you can do? In the middle also you can use, right? You get the point? So that also you can do smartly. So now coming to the next question. That's basically analyze role of local bodies in providing good governance at local level and bring out the pros and cons of merging the rural local bodies with urban local bodies, right? So again, 150 words in 10 marks it is being asked. So in 10 marks, such a long question is being asked. So again, the thumb rule is, for these lengthy questions, you need to write it in ultra precise and concise. Never ever try to explain the point, right? Try to write as many as point possible, but ultra concise and precise. You get the point? You have to just give a hint or indication of the point to the examiner, right? But also make sure that they are self-explanatory. Yeah? Otherwise, you will not be able to complete the paper. These questions UPSC is going to ask, this kind of questions UPSC is definitely going to ask in 10 marks question. And they are basically trap based questions. They are basically trap for you. How? Suppose if you give so much time, words, and your attention to this question, right? So what will happen? Like for this suppose 10 marks question, you are supposed to give 7 minutes, right? You will end up giving 10 or 15 minutes to this question. And what this will result? You will skip 1 or 2 10 marks or 15 marks question, right? By writing elaboratively in this answer, you may get suppose 1 mark extra than your competitors. You get the point? But in quest of this, writing this question beautifully, right, thoroughly, you will end up consuming your 10 to 15 minutes here. Then you will skip either 1 or 2 15 marks question, right? So you may get 1 mark extra, but here you lose 15 marks, 7.5 marks each of 15 marks question, right? So that's why thumb rule for this kind of lengthy question is write in ultra precise and concise manner. So your introduction should be crisp, conclusion should be crisp, main body points, ultra precise manner, and just go to another question. You get the point? So in any way, your time should not exceed more than 7 or 8 minutes for this question. You get the point? Anna, sir. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You get the point? So now discussing first the body parts of the question. Analyze role of local bodies in providing good governance at local level. Right? That's the first part of your question. So first you need to write about role of local bodies in providing good governance at local level. Right? How local bodies, as panchayats and municipalities, helps good governance at local level. Right? Then the tail word is analyze. So first you need to write about role, then uh, then you have to analyze it, whether they are able to deliver or perform their role effectively. Right? So it means you need to write the challenges also. That's real life challenge. Right? Hmm? You can not write it directly. You can write it like corruption in the system, or the MP MLS dominates these local bodies. Get the point? So by this manner you need to write this. Yes. So analyze tailword makes you write challenges also. Right? Then you need to write about pros and cons of merging rural and local bodies with urban bodies. Right? So this kind of like question is neither discussed in static nor in current. Right? Current affair rarely you will get the article regarding merger of rural local bodies and urban local bodies, panchayats and municipalities. Right? Because that's very radical idea and rarely discussed. Right? So here UPSC wants to assess your on-the-spot thinking. Right? No committee I think have ever recommended the merger of two bodies. Right? No civil society member or no politician is demanding merger of panchayats and municipalities. So that's a very radical, out-of-box idea. So here UPSC is testing your on-the-spot thinking level, on-the-spot analytical ability. Whether you can do spontaneous analysis of the given idea or proposal or not. Right? Whatever we have discussed so far is there in your textbooks or was there in your current affairs and so on. So you must have read texts, you must have read so many articles and so on. Right? For this, you need to spot, you have to do spot thinking, spot analysis. Get the point? So never ever get scared of these kind of questions. You have to just do practice of answer writing and you will be able to do the pros and cons and never find the answer of these type of question in textbooks. You will never find. Sometimes students come to us, sir, suggest certain books for addressing these kind of questions. Get the point? There is no text for these kind of questions. For this, you have to do answer writing practice. For these kind of questions, you have to do spot thinking. Get the point? Sometimes it do, but the question will be paraphrased differently. Get the point? So first body part we have discussed, role of local bodies in good governance, then challenges. Third is pros and cons of merger, right? That you have to do on the spot. And in conclusion, right, there will be like two prescriptions. First is how local bodies could be strengthened, right? For that you can add on suppose second ARC recommendations, right? Or you can add suppose Sarkaria Commission's recommendations and so on. Right? National Commission to Review Constitution recommendations also. I think that's not their own local body. Rajmanar you can add, but you should avoid Rajmanar Commission recommendation. Why? Because it was biased towards state government, and you are supposed to become All India Service members, and All India Service members are appointed by center, right? So obviously you will be biased towards center. Get the point? So Rajmanar Commission's recommendations were highly tilted towards state government. So Rajmanar Commission recommendations you could give when the question is such where you are being asked to advocate for state autonomy, right? Then you can talk about Rajmanar, right? Otherwise follow Sarkari or Punchi Commission recommendations. Abolish All India Service. Get the point? So here you should know, right? Yes. Again, it's a lengthy question. So how you will write Sarkaria Commission recommendations or second ARC recommendations? See, one or two recommendations you should write, like activity mapping recommended by second ARC, your first point, right? Second point could be suppose strengthening the finances of local bodies by giving them taxation power as recommended by National Commission of Review of Constitution. That will be your second point, right? So you get first point at recommendation of ARC, second as recommendation of National Commission of Review of Constitution, third, what could be your own suggestions, right? And in conclusion, you can draw a table also. First, for suppose strengthening local body, right? Second could be right way out for merger of rural and urban local body, right? And never ever give such radical idea in your conclusion because you are supposed to be civil servant. Such radical policy decision should be taken by political executive. You will always recommend for strengthening the existing mechanism, reforming the existing mechanism, right? How rural or urban bodies could be put in coordination with each other or could be made to be in synchronization with each other, right? For that you can talk about revival and strengthening of district planning committees, right? That would help to consolidate development plans of both panchayats and municipalities. You get the point? So these kind of recommendations you will give. Never ever advocate radical ideas, right? That ideas should always put forward by politicians, not by civil servants, right? Standing committees also could be formed where both panchayats and municipality members will be there, right? Then there could be committee of the panchayats and urban affairs minister, then district panchayats, the metropolitan or municipalities, mayors, etc., where they can jointly decide about the development plans. You get the point? These kind of ideas you can write, right? You get the point? So here, prescriptive or suggestive conclusion will be there. But conclusion will be of two parts, addressing both parts of the question. Or another way you can adopt is of like first, suppose giving local body definition in introduction, or introduction could be of suppose constitutional article like part 9 by 73 Constitutional Amendment Act, part 9A by 74 Constitutional Amendment Act, part 9A consists articles 243 to O, OP2, ZG consists in part 9A, talk about 11th and 12th schedule, etc. in introduction. So either could be of definition of local bodies, right, or constitutional articles in introduction, right? Then write role, right? Suppose it helps to resolve local grievances of the people like of garbage disposal or cleanliness, street lighting, etc. Right? It's close to the people, so here people take part in the governance itself, ensuring participatory or direct democracy. You get the point? So these kind of things you need to write in role. Right? Then challenges, they lack powers, they lack funds, right? They lack staff, they lack autonomy, and so on. Clear? So that will be part of your challenges. Then here you can make a first conclusion of your answer, writing suggestions for strengthening local bodies, like adequate devolution of functions, functionaries, and funds, regular elections. Get the point? Training of the members and so on. Transparency, use of latest technology, and so on. Right? Then comes to the second sub part of your question. Let's make a table, right? Merger of urban and rural local bodies. Then in one column write pros, in second write cons. Right? So write the pros, for example, integration of resources, right? No duplicity of activities. Urban and rural development are mutually dependent on each other, right? So that could be coordinated. Get the point? And integrated development of the region and so on. Cons will be like you need constitutional amendment. Then rural priorities may get sidelined. Urban priorities, urban areas may be given priorities, right? The urban living and rural living is different. Urban living is individualistic, rural living is collective. Yeah, state governments are maybe not willing to create third tier of the government, right? And so on. Get the point? So, training of the municipality or franchise members are already given there. Okay. So see, that's not happening everywhere. So in Mysore, suppose training is being given to Jilla Parishad members. Is it given to Gram Panchayat members also? No, no. So what you can do on the similar lines of training of Jilla Panchayat members in Mysore or in Karnataka, we should also give training to each and every member of Panchayati Raj institution and municipality in every state of the country. You get the point? So here you have given a suggestion that too substantiated with a real life case study. You get the point? So in this manner you will get the marks. Clear? You get the point? So, whatever we were discussing, first introduction, suppose definition or constitutional articles, right? Then the role, then challenges, then a table, right? Even this role challenges also you can draw a table. Here role, here challenges, because you will just get 2 pages for this question, and it is very large, very lengthy question, right? So again here table, then here table, merger, pros and cons, right? Then a suggestion, conclusion, right? First for strengthening local bodies, or for measures for ensuring coordination between rural and urban bodies. Very point. That's one way. Or second could be definition, constitutional articles, role challenges, then a conclusion, first conclusion here, way forward. Then writing pros and cons of merger, right? Then the second conclusion. But you suggest for merger, right? And you will not advocate for merger, you will advocate for coordination between urban and rural local bodies and forming the existing mechanisms. You get the point? Clear? That's how you have to structure and present your answer, and that's how the content will be. Clear? You get the point? Fine. Now coming to the next question. What changes has the union government recently introduced in domain of center-state relations, suggest measures to adopt it to build the trust between center and state and for strengthening federalism. Right? So very simple, straightforward question. You have to mention changes Union government brought in the domain of center-state relations recently. Recently does not mean in last year. Here it means in last 10 years. Question asked in 2024, Modi government came in 2014. It is asking about changes by Modi government. You get the point. So you can talk about last 10 years. Then straightforwardly you have to write measures. Right? Here you have to tailword is suggest. Right? Or what are the changes? Suppose the tailword have been examined. Then you have to talk about how these changes are facing challenges. Or what are the significance of these changes. Right? But the tailword is simply what. That's basically describe or explain. You have to just write the changes. Right? Then the other word is suggest measures. Right? So the point I'm making here is, as per the tailwords of the question, you do not need to write issues, challenges, or importance of changes in center-state relations. You have to just simply describe the changes and then come to the measures. Right? But I've told you to read the question twice or thrice, or maybe more than that. Right? So if you read the question like twice or thrice, then you will realize that you have to write measures. Most of the people, what they will do, they will simply write the measures for improving center-state relations. They may quote Sarkariya Punchi Commission or second ARC or National Commission on Review of Constitution or Law Commission or whatever. Right? But the question says you need to write measures for building the trust between center and state and also for strengthening federalism. Right? So here what you need to do, either draw a table. Right? In first column, you need to write about measures for strengthening relation between center and state. In second column, you need to write measures for strengthening federalism. You get the point? Or what you can do, you can make two, like suppose two rectangles. In one, you can talk about measures for building trust between center and state. Second, for strengthening federalism. How then you will do? Basically write, suppose you have 10 recommendations. Right? 5 you can write in building trust between center state. 5 you can write about strengthening federalism. You get the point? So this way the question will get addressed holistically. But most of the candidates, what they will do, they will simply write the measures and start writing 10 points underneath. But that's also true, but to adequately address or to fully address the demand of the question, need of the question, you have to write it separately. Clear? You get the point? Then examiner will get the feel that you have read the question carefully and addressing each and every aspect of it. Right? You get the point? So you can end your answer by the measures. Right? So here conclusion is not necessary. But it's 15 mark question, so one line you can give of conclusion. So like effective implementation of measures should be there, or the strong political will and earnest implementation of these measures should be done, right, at the earliest. You get the point? So these kind of concluding remarks you can give. Yeah, that also, but that's basically part of measures for strengthening federalism or building trust between center and state. So that's a measure. Last line, like after writing the measures, what could be? Like these measures should be implemented at the earliest by strong political will, especially of ruling party at the time. You get the point? Clear? Even if you skip this line, that's also fine. Right? So now what are the changes recently introduced by the government in center-state relations? For example, 42% tax devolution by 14th Finance Commission, 41% by 15th Finance Commission. Right? Rationalization of centrally sponsored scheme. Earlier it was more than 100, around 130. Now it is around 75. Thereby states getting more autonomy in deciding their policy programs for various state police checks. Right? Then you can talk about GST. Right? GST Council, where center and state both cooperate to determine the tax rates in the country. Right? You can talk about abolition of planning commission, because planning commissions were also controlling state governments, right? And instead replaced with Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog handhold the states in designing of their policy programs for development, right? That you can talk about. And competitive federalism also introduced, for example, by ease of doing business rankings, health index rankings, right? Or cleanliness ranking under Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Their states are incentivized to compete with each other in delivery of various public services, right? Hmm. Yeah, compete with each other regarding development or effective public service delivery, right? Or Uday scheme, where central government supports states in rationalizing and their power sector, in reforming their power sector, so that the power companies are no longer in losses. Get the point? So that's a revival of interstate council, zonal councils by Modi government, right? But do not go into no, in analysis part. Here, analysis is not asked whether such measures are effective or not. If you write like importance or challenges of these measures, marks will be done. Get the point? You have to restrict yourself, control yourself. You may have the content, right, to write about the limitations, but restrict yourself. Never write it. Many students try to write briefly even the limitation. Do not do it. Because tail words simply is but. Right? Get the point? And what will be your introduction? It could be, suppose, constitutional introduction. Right? Part 11, 12 deals with center state, executive and legislative and financial relations. Right? That you can talk about. Or you can talk about a brief about what is happening as of now, like Modi government brings a lot of reforms in center-state relations, and we have changed, or we have witnessed changes in center-state relations by way of cooperation and competitive federalism. Right? That you can talk. We can give also definition-based. First is constitutional-based introduction. Second is current affair-based introduction. That's basically the Modi government bringing certain changes in line of in direction of competitive cooperative federalism. Third could be this definition-based introduction. You can give definition of federalism, right, or cooperative federalism, or competitive federalism. Get the point? That also we can talk about. Clear? And in measures, you need to talk about revival of interstate council, making it permanent, appointment of governor by a committee which have CM as member, right? And greater tax devolution to states, further rationalization of state-sponsored schemes, and so on. Clear? No, non-army president rule should not be imposed arbitrarily, and so on. Yeah, that also you can suggest, like, yeah. So after consulting the chief minister, or it could be applied, suppose, in restricted part of the state, as suggested by Kunchi Commission. Okay? So that's basically the answer of this question. Now coming to the next question, that's basically reasons for growth of public interest litigation in India, and as a result of it, has Indian Supreme Court emerged as world's most powerful judiciary. Right, again a 3 marks question written to be written in 250 words. So here first you need to write about reasons for growth of public interest litigation. Right, that's the first body part. Right. So for obviously your introduction will be definition of public interest litigation, where the principle of locus standi is relaxed by Supreme Court. So you can any person can file the case in Supreme Court or High Court on the behalf of aggrieved person, right, for the enforcement of rights of the people. Right. The rest of the definition you can write. Right. Then you have to talk about make a subheading, reasons for growth of public interest litigation. Right? Very straightforward question. And in introduction, you need to make a comment also on growth of public interest litigation. Now you can talk about, you have to make a comment in the introduction after defining public interest litigation that nowadays courts are burdened with public interest litigation, or majority of the cases being filed in courts are of PIL nature, right? So that will reflect the growth of PIL part. Courts, most of the decisions that court gives nowadays is of public interest matters, right? Or courts are preoccupied with PILs nowadays. So that one line you should write about. That will reflect the growth of public interest litigation in your answer. Then talk about reasons. For example, the Supreme Court become mute spectator during emergency in protection of rights of people. That's why through PIL it do the remorse by enlarging and proactively asserting its power in protection of fundamental rights. Right? Then you can talk about other reasons also, like the judicial activism, right, have resulted PIL, and PIL in return strengthen judicial activism. Then weakening of executive and legislature, especially in 1990s and 2000s, where coalition government was there, where executive prime focus was on survival, thereby not delivering on the public service or ensuring socio-economic development and so on. That's why judiciary step in through PIL, right, and so on. So that kind of reasons you need to write. And you need to, here examples are like mandatory. Without example, you can't score marks in this question. So you need to talk about PIL of, suppose, banning firecrackers in Delhi, or for banning petrol diesel cars in Delhi, right? PIL of banning liquor on the national highways in the country, right? So you need to write examples. PIL of Vishakha guidelines, right? Then, as a result of it, India's Supreme Court become most powerful. That's the second part of the question, right? Here, your opinion has been asked whether Supreme Court become most powerful or not. Now, how will you answer these kind of questions? Because suppose many times question is framed where you have been asked to give your opinion in yes or no. Like here also the question is framed in such manner where you have been asked to answer in yes or no. Like whether the Supreme Court emerged as most powerful judiciary or not. Right? Or you could be asked whether the democracy is eroding in the country or not. Right? So never ever answer these kind of question statements in yes or no. Never. Never write yes, Supreme Court become most powerful, or never ever write no, Supreme Court become no, Supreme Court do not become the most powerful judiciary in the world, and so on. Yes, no, yes, never should be there, because civil servant will always give a balanced answer, a diplomatic answer, right? So be diplomatic in these kind of answers. Be objective in these kind of answers. So what you need to write to address this part of the question, not simply by yes or no, right? So this part of the question will have three subparts. First, you will agree with the given statement, but in lighter tone, right? So how first subpart you will address, like you will agree with this statement in this manner, that yes, you will write in this manner that PIL has surely enhanced Supreme Court powers. You get the point? It has strengthened Supreme Court's position vis-a-vis legislature and executive. It PIL has enabled Supreme Court to exercise the given power of Constitution in full-fledged manner, assigned power of Constitution in full-fledged manner. You get the point? PIL has helped Supreme Court to proactively and assertively exercise its power. And you will write a line of justification also, and it was necessary for protection and enlargement of fundamental rights. Get the point? Then in second line, in second paragraph, you will talk about that, but Supreme Court power under PLA is not unlimited, unrestricted, is not absolute. It is subject to constitutional provisions. It is subject to legislature scrutiny. If the legislature finds that Supreme Court exercise power excessively, then legislature by a law or constitutional amendment will rectify it. For example, done in Shabano case, where legislature reversed the Supreme Court judgment, right? And Supreme Court powers are subjected to public opinion also. Supreme Court should not lose legitimacy or public trust by excessive or overuse of power, right? So that's basically your assessment, right? Where you are saying Supreme Court power is not unbridled, right? Then you will make a concluding remark that such public interest litigation is product of judicial activism, but it is also coupled with judicial restraint, right? And it certainly makes Supreme Court powerful, or you can say one of the most powerful courts in the country, but certainly it certainly makes Supreme Court one of the most powerful judiciary in the world, but certainly not the most powerful judiciary, right? You get the point? So that will be your concluding remark. So you have addressed the statement, but not in correct yes or no, right? You have been diplomatic. You have been diplomatic, but you have been also clear in expression of your opinion. You get the point? Being diplomatic does not mean that you need to be ambiguous in your opinion. The examiner does not get any idea that whether you are in favor of this statement or against. You have told that to a certain extent you agreed with this statement, but to a certain extent you also disagree. And you also provide reasoning of it. And in the last, by saying that Supreme Court is one of the most powerful judiciary of the world, certainly, right? You are also making it clear what is actually your stand is. You get the point? So being balanced or being diplomatic does not mean being ambiguous or being not ready to take any side, right? Being balanced, being diplomatic means being objective. You are being aware how this is increasing Supreme Court power, and you are also being aware how the Supreme Court power is also restricted, right? You are being aware that Supreme Court power status has risen as compared to other judiciaries of the world, but not to the extent that it becomes the most powerful judiciary. You get the point? Clear? And these kind of questions quite often asked in interview, whether democracy is ending in the country, whether judiciary is becoming the omnipotent, omnipresent power of the power center of the country, and so on. Right? So you may be tempted to answer it yes or no, but never ever. To a certain extent, you have to agree with the statement. To a certain extent, you have to disagree. Then, in the end, you have to mark your opinion in affirmative, or sorry, in assertive, clear manner. You get the point? That's the way to answer these kind of questions. Yeah? No. Directly you can't say I don't know, but there are different ways to answer. I don't know. Not literally I don't know. Right? Like you talk about how power increase of Supreme Court, how power is restricted. And in last, you can say that I can't say it with certainty that it makes Supreme Court most powerful of judiciary of the world. That's it in right. You can answer in. That's the way of answering I don't know. Not directly I don't know. Right? Get the point? Clear? Now coming to the next question. I think that's second last question of the day. It says, discuss India as a secular state and compare with secular principles of US Constitution. Right? So something, this question is related to society, because in society also you read secularism, and in polity also a little bit you read about the secular nature of Indian state. State means government. right? So here there are two parts of the question. First, you have to discuss what is the nature of India as secular state, right? Then you have to compare it with US constitution, right? There are two ways to answer this question. First, you talk about suppose India is secular state, then make a table of India and US secular state nature, right? Or simply you can make a single table where you talk about nature of India as secular state and also compare it with USA, right? Then start writing other points of difference between Indian and US secularism, right? So that depends on the time that you have in the examination. If you have limited time, make a single table for both sections of the answer, right? And if you do not have time, if you not have time, then make single table. But if you have time, then first write India as secular state, then compare it with USA by drawing a table, right? So introduction could be secularism definition, right? Definition based approach you can follow. Right? Then talk about India as secular state, where you are going to talk about the constitution explicitly do not use the word originally secular anywhere in the constitution, but it was later on amended in the preamble by 42 constitution amendment. These things we will discuss in preamble chapter. Here not covers on the right. Niti Aayog sector is covering economics. So you need to talk about by 42 constitutional amendment, like in preamble secularism what was added, but constitutional implicitly was trying to establish India as secular state by Article 14 or Article 26, 27, 28, 25, right, and so on, right? And then you have to prescribe that what Indian secularism is. That's basically of following of Sarv Dharm Sambhav principle, that all religions will be equal before the government. No religion will be discriminated by the government, right? All either will be equally favored or not favored, right? Certainly, no religion will be discriminated against by the government. Get the point? That's basically the Indian secularism. That's the first section. And in second section, you need to distinguish, right? So, while discussing secularism in polity, we do discuss its comparison with US, right? For that, you need to draw a table, right? So, we do discuss that in US, there is separation between religion and government. Neither government will interfere in religious affairs of, or neither government will intervene in affairs of religion, nor religion will interfere in the affairs of government, right? All will be equal before the government, right? But in India, the same principle is followed, but with certain additions, that government may intervene in religious matters, suppose for doing social reforms like prohibition of dowry or sati, etc., or prohibition of triple talaq, right? Or state can intervene in interest of public order, for example, regulating the processions, Ganpati processions, or suppose Muharram processions and so on of different religions, right? Or government may favor religion, but if the government is favoring religion, then it has to be done for all. For example, if it is giving subsidies for pilgrimage, then it has to be given for all religion. Get the point? So here state intervention is allowed, but in USA, no state intervention in religious matters is allowed. Clear? You get the point? So that's why you can say our secularism is one step ahead than US secularism. That will be part of the conclusion. No, that's different history. In India also one type of religion dominates as Hinduism. 85% of the population is Hinduism. But Hindus also live there, Muslims also live there. Yeah, so they're part of American society. So their religion also should be respected. But there are Jews also, right? You get the point. So uh, this thing obviously we discuss in polity class. One more point is there, like uh, the term secular is there in preamble by 42 Constitutional Amendment Act and so on. By first Constitutional Amendment Act in USA, two provisions were added that no law will be establishing official religion of the government. Right? The government will not have any official religion. For example, during medieval period, Islam was official religion of the government. During ancient period, Hinduism was official religion, like of Gupta period, suppose. Or during Mauryan period, during Chandragupta Maurya, Jainism was official religion, and during Ashokan period, Buddhism became. Right? So that kind of official religion will not be there of government. Right? Second, it says that that all people of the American society will be free to exercise their own religion. Right? State will not interfere in anyone's religious matter. Get the point? So this thing we do not actually discuss in text. Right? So this is the new information you can add in your notes. Right? And anytime again this kind of question arises, you can add in your answer. Right? But if you write suppose this much data also, you will get very good marks. Yeah. And this basically data is added either through current affairs, right, or through these kind of discussions we are having. Get the point? No one will be able to write this kind of data in it. Yeah. But still, because we have to make an answer for this UPSC PYQ, that's why we have it. You get the point? So majority of the, or almost all of the candidates will write this much of information. You get the point? So here you can talk about that uniform civil code is not there in the country, but there in America uniform civil code is there, right? And here courts allow state intervention, but here courts do not allow any intervention in religious matter, right? And here states sometimes engage with religion, for example, management of PYQ Mela, providing hub subsidies and so on. There you will not find such state engagement with religion. You get the point? So here in Indian secularism stress equality between religions, but US prioritize separation or neutrality from the religion. Clear? Here you have been asked, suppose, see, I have told you to read the question multiple times. So here the word is compare. Right? Compare do not mean only points of difference. It also means points of similarity. You get the point? So in fact, your first body part should be first about similarities between US and Indian secularism, then talk about points of difference. You get the point? So similarities also you can write. For example, both US and India state does not have any official religion. Both gives right to atheists to practice their own. No, atheists do not have any religion. Their own ideas, or right? They could keep themselves away from religion. You get the point? So both gives power to judiciary to strike down laws which are not secular in nature. You get the point? So these kinds of points of similarity you can write. Then talk about difference. You get the point? So majority of the candidates will write points of difference. But if you write points of similarity, you will get surely 100% extra marks than your competitors. For that purpose, read the question multiple times. Right? Then only you will be able to find the hidden subparts of the question. Hidden to others, not to you. You get the point? The last question of the day is examining the need for electoral reforms as suggested by various committees with particular reference to one nation, one election principle. Again, it has been asked in 150 words, or you can say 10 marks question. Right? You get the point? Right? So how will you address this question? Again, it's a very lengthy question. You need to be very smart in answering this question. It's testing your time management skills more than the content. So here, first is need for electoral reforms. So first is what kind of electoral reforms we need. Right? Then why there is need of electoral reforms? You get the point? And that also suggested by various committees. So here, your own suggested reforms are not asked, but here, committee suggested reforms are asked, right? And with the particular reference to one nation, one election reform. You get the point? That also you need to write, right? So here, first you need to write about the committee's suggested electoral reform. Then you need to write about the need of electoral reform. Why that particular electoral reform is required. Why we require simultaneous election or state funding of elections, right? Or collegium appointed election commissioners, or permanent electoral, permanent secretary to election commission, right? And so on. So why we need that? That also you need to write. Get the point? And then there is also tailward examining. So if you go deeper, then you have to write pros and cons also of these suggested reforms. Yeah. So that you can skip. But here you need to follow the principle or funda. Write the pros and cons. But do not write it comprehensive. Just write 2 or 3 points. You get the point? Just to see, most of the candidates are going to skip these pros and cons. Right? By writing pros and cons, you are giving idea to the examiner that tailword was examining. See, I have examined it. Despite that I have limited time and limited space, limited words, still I have examined it. Now give me extra marks for writing this hidden sub part of the question. Examiner will be forced to give you extra marks. Forced. You get the point? Yeah, but write just 2-3 points because you do not have the time, you do not have the word limit, you do not have the space limit. Space and time, but just write 2-3 points only. That too in table. At one rows, in one other column, cons. Yeah, and that's also very like lengthy part. Committee, electoral reform, then need. Put it also smartly. What you can do is make a table. Right here, you write about electoral reform needed, state funding of election, which committee recommended, then what is the need. Right. Second electoral reform, decriminalization of politics. Who recommended? Why we need. You get the point? Then inner party democracy, right? Or simultaneous election, strengthening election commission, right? Preparation of electoral rolls, common electoral rolls for both state, center, and local bodies elections, right? And so on. Who recommended? Why we require. You get the point? Then make another table of pros and cons. Right? Pros, for example, will further strengthen the integrity of election process, will further ensure participation of commoners in the elections. Right? 2 points. In cons, write about difficult to implement, required huge political will, required huge constitutional and legal amendments, and so on. Right? Just 2-3 points. Then come to one nation, one election principle. Here, particular reference has been asked. So again, make a table. Right? Which committee recommended? Get the point? Then in second, pros, third, cons, then way for. You get the point? So pros is will save election expenditure, right? Will save government time in election, prevent populist measures like freebies, right? Cons is difficult to execute one nation, one election. For that, you can write this committee recommendation as in paragraph format before the table. Like these committees has recommended one nation, one election. Right? You get the point? Then pros and cons and way forward. Right? And in conclusion, in one line, you should do that these reforms could be implemented in phases. Just opinion you can give. a balanced opinion. Right? In phases and require consensus among different political parties and also strong political weight or the part of ruling party. Get the point? So that you can write in conclusion. Get the point? So that's all about the discussions. The benefit, challenges, which you can put in table. Clear? You get the point? So that's how you will address this question. Again, a very lengthy question. But this kind of question only you will be able to address in this short time, short space, short word limit. When you remember everything. That's why revisions are important. That's why you will be able to write this such lengthy answer in shortest possible time. You get the point? In such smart manner. Get the point? So that was all about 2024 previous year question discussion. Any doubt? So that's all for today. I wish you all happy learning and thank you very much.